Caps Hockey Review underway once again. I know. No first intro, no little snappy comments before the video. No, not this time. It's business today. It's business. Well, I'm back. It's been a minute. It was a rough series. Kind of wanted to take a little time to collect my thoughts on this series, but also collect my thoughts on what's to come this summer and what I think needs to happen. So we'll start. We'll start with the Bruins series because boy, did that not go how we hoped. Certainly not what we wanted, but it was what we got. Wow. Here we were. Here I was after game one, all excited, telling you folks that this might be the year. It might be finally time again to get excited. Yeah, that was a bad prediction, wasn't it? That aged real well. Anyway, I will say the biggest undoing for the Caps this postseason seemed to be just undisciplined play, making mistakes at costly times in costly situations. Minus mistakes, minus bad penalties at the ends of games 2 and 3 to allow the tying goals, and bad mistakes in overtime of both those games to allow game-winning goals against. Caps could have been up possibly 3-0. To be safe, I'd say 2-1, but man, it's amazing how a couple plays here or there really do make a difference. And you could see after that game 4, the now infamous just complete utter screw up, the crossing of the wires between Schultz and Samsonov behind the net. It looks like it just took the wind out of the team. Game 4 was an absolute joke. Absolute joke. Game 5, a little better, but not anywhere near where they needed to be. So what do we have here? As I sit here today and look at this Caps roster as it was for the playoffs, what do I see? Well, to be completely honest with you, what I see here is an old team. They're old. By NHL standards, this is an old team. Mathematically, by average, they are the oldest team in the NHL. They have the oldest player in the NHL. Alex Ovechkin is going to be 36 before next season starts. Nicholas Backstrom will be 33. It's an old team. John Carlson is getting up to 30. Okay, your 3 core guys right there. Everyone's, you got one approaching mid-30s, one approaching late 30s, and one approaching early 30s. The problem here is this is a 20-something league now. Unless everybody on the team can just skate like the wind, and not everybody on this Caps team can, in comparison to the rest of the league, you got a problem. You really do. And the reason why is because if you can't skate as fast as another team, it's hard to beat a team that you can't keep up with. And with so many teams getting younger, it's only going to get harder for these guys if they don't do something about it proactively. And I'll kind of discuss what I mean by that as we go along here. Man, that series. God, what a joke. Anyway, I sat here after game 1 and told everybody how excited I was, how just this team is like, it's like having a bad girlfriend. She's nice to you every now and again and, does something nice for you, but more often than not, she just tells you you suck and, she breaks your heart and kicks you when you're down and, hurts your feelings. That's what this team is like. Every once in a while, they'll, make a big win in the playoffs. They win a cup. And it's look, we could have it worse. We could have never won that cup. Okay, this could be a lot worse. I could be sitting up here after how many years in the playoff era for the Caps under Ovechkin? We're getting up to like 14, never having won a cup. So, I mean, it could be worse, but it certainly could be a lot better as well. So, this team is in a situation now where I will not say rebuild is necessarily necessary, but I think a retool is certainly in order. And the Caps have a golden opportunity to get that done. So you need to re-sign Alex Ovechkin, captain, leading goal scorer. He's earned it. He deserves it. He needs to be there. They'll get it done. As far as some of the other players on the team, well, as we all know, the expansion draft will happen in July. So the Caps are going to lose somebody there, of course. Early predictions had it being TJ Oshie as it sits now, as far as contract situations and everything like that. And given his play, I don't think they're going to expose Oshie, because if they do, he will certainly get taken in the draft. So I think he will be on that protected list. Now that leaves open, okay, Vitek Vanacek stands out. Obviously had a pretty good rookie season. But given there's so many other teams in this league that have a really solid two goalie situation, I mean, just within the Metropolitan Division alone, you have the Rangers, who have Ilya Sorokin and, excuse me, the Islanders have Ilya Sorokin and Semyon Varlamov. The Rangers have Igor Shesterkin. Those two are kind of similar last names there. And Alex Georgiev. Those are two real potential candidates. I would say Varlamov and Georgiev are the prime targets. And you look, okay, Columbus. You've got Merzlikins and Korpisalo over there. One of those will have to be exposed. That's certainly an enticing option for the Kraken. You look at Carolina. You've got Peter Mrazek over there and Alex Nedeljkovic. I would think Peter Mrazek will be available. And even looking outside the Caps division, you've got over in Colorado, Philip Grubauer, our old buddy Philip Grubauer. Certainly he will not be exposed, but I would believe his backup, Pavel Francouz, will be. Possibly Devin Dubnyk, depending on what his contract situation is like. That could be an option for Seattle. I could do this all day. Florida they have a trio of guys down there. My point, there are a lot of available goalies that are going to be difference makers in this draft. So I would not say that Vanacek is a prime target. Now, what else do the Caps deep in? Well, defensemen. Okay. Char out of the picture. He's on a 1-year deal. He's not really going to be protected. He's not going to be taken, I'm sure. But looking at defensemen potential, the most likely ones to be protected, of course, John Carlson, Dmitry Orlov, who a lot of fans dump on. I've dumped on in the past. His playoff performance was outstanding. I mean, outstanding. He was the best player on the ice for the Caps every night. After that performance, I would not be so quick to expose him, and I don't think the Caps will. And third, Justin Schultz. You went out, you signed the guy, possibly Brendan Dillon. It's going to be between Schultz and Dillon for that third spot, I think. And whichever one doesn't get protected, I'm sure, is getting taken in the draft. Excuse me. So, what does that mean for the Caps? Well, you got to go find a defenseman. And personally, it's my opinion, Zdeno Chara will not be back next year. Assuming he doesn't retire. The man is 44. Okay, we're approaching Yager territory. He might be past Yager. I think Yager played till 45 in the NHL, so he's got 1 year there. But anyway, just incredible to be doing it still at that age and to play as much, as often, as many minutes as he did for this team all year. Really, really, really impressive. Anyway, I don't think Z will be back. This playoff run certainly was not what he expected, definitely not what he wanted, getting punched out in 5 games by his former team. So I'm thinking if he does not retire, he will look for greener pastures. Will he go back to Boston? I don't know. They seem pretty happy with their situation over there. I don't think they would offer him any bigger of a role than he would have had this past year had he re-signed there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, but I don't think Chara is a capital come next season. So you're looking at, of course, no Chara, defenseman likely to be taken in the draft. You got some holes to fill. Now, luckily, Martin Feravari in Hershey has been very good. He looks very ready for the NHL. Alex Alexeyev, another promising defenseman, looks very close and could certainly be a young spark to that D-core. So I like those two options in this whole spirit of a retool. I like those two options to fill in some space. I'm sure if cap space is available, Brian McClellan may go after a bigger fish at free agency. That's fine. As long as we're not, kicking some guy who's 33, 5 years at $6 million per. Long contracts for big salaries to guys in their 30s. Ugh, don't even get me started on there. Anyway, before I branch off and start in on another topic. Anyway, getting younger on D. That's certainly a good thing. Speed, as I've said, is very important. Having guys who can win races for the puck, for icing, for whatever it might be, not getting walked at the blue line. Definitely need to see a little more of that. There was quite a bit of the Caps looking a bit slow defensively throughout that series and throughout the latter part of the regular season. So hoping to see some youth on D, whether that's Feravari and Alexeyev or Feravari and McClellan signs somebody or trades for somebody, whatever. Hoping to see something. Now, kind of the elephant in the room as far as trade rumors go. Evgeny Kuznetsov. I sat here a couple weeks ago and said, I'm about 80% sure Evgeny Kuznetsov will not be a Capital come the start of next season. Brian McClellan has come out and stated, if a trade makes sense for Evgeny Kuznetsov, they will make it. Now, that sounds a lot to me like he's making it known that Kuznetsov is available, and he's waiting for the phone to ring, and it very well might. But I think in this situation where you're looking at an aging team, cap strapped, as always up against the salary cap ceiling, you're looking at a guy who's still, by NHL measures, fairly young, a guy who makes 7 to 8, somewhere between 7.5, somewhere between 7.5 and 8.5. I apologize for my little gaffe there. Anyway, guy who's making a decent chunk of salary, and he plays center. Center position is the most highly sought after in the NHL as far as trades go because it's a rare player who can do both, who can play offensively and defensively. We're starting to see it more with offensive defensemen and things like that, but the center position is so highly sought after. McClellan could get a lot for Kuznetsov as he is right now. He's still young, got a fairly manageable cap hit for a team, in the market for that level of a center. Most contending teams have their top end centers. They're not looking for a Kuznetsov. A team who's kind of in the build, like a Ottawa, Montreal, possibly. They're kind of cap strapped though. Minnesota's a possibility. Anyway, any of these teams that are kind of either in the rebuild but are looking to be really good in the next few years, or a team who's looking kind of ready now, like Minnesota, but they're missing a couple pieces, Kuznetsov could be a very enticing target for these teams. Now, I will say I think Brian McClellan needs to be pretty proactive in pursuing a trade. sitting back and waiting for the phone to ring at this point for him would be a mistake. The reason why, salary cap space makes things so much easier for GMs in building a team and maintaining a team, preventing that roster turnover. Cap space is so important. And you look at, okay, Alex Ovechkin's deal is up. That's 9.5 coming off the cap hit. Now, early projections are that he's going to make very close to that in his new deal. So that's not saving any cap space. I kind of hope he takes less. I mean, come on. The man had the richest deal in hockey. 13 years, $124 million at one point. Richest deal ever at one point. The man's made his money. Plenty of money. His endorsements, I realize he plays a dangerous game for a living and needs to be compensated for being one of the top players in that league. I understand. However, if ever there was a time for him to pull the old Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby move and say, y'all take a little less to stay here and help the team. What would that look like? Well, I think we're looking in the neighborhood of 4 years. I think a $6 million AAV, average annual value for those in the cheap seats, I think that would be very good. It's a very fair number given his age. It's still a very good salary by NHL standards, and it would leave some room, leave a little bit of cap space. So hopefully that's what happens. I mean, we saw Nick Backstrom, they backed the truck up for him and took him to the bank. It's looking like that's going to happen for Ovi. I'm not going to sit here and say he doesn't deserve it because he absolutely does. I'm just saying it would be nice to pick up a little cap space along the way. So assuming that they back the truck up for Ovi, trading Kuznetsov, getting that $7.5 to $8.5 million off the books, that's some cap space too. More than, that's some cap space. Now what does that mean? Well, okay, so we've filled defense out with Alexeyev and Faravari in my little fantasy here. Now we got to fill in for Kuznetsov. Okay, Lars Eller we've seen step up and play the second line center role before. TJ Oshie's played center a little bit. I don't kind of say he's not necessarily a fan of it, but he'll do it. Those two are an option to fill that second center role. Or here's kind of an either or scenario. Either way, bring Connor McMichael in. And the reason why, he led the Hershey Bears in points this year. First team AHL All-Star selection. The guy's good. He's young. Get him up here. Give him a chance to grow. Get him in the NHL. Fill out your center spot with somebody in-house. Don't go trade for somebody who's ready now. I've heard probably the most accurate, credible rumor I've heard is that Kuznetsov to San Jose for Thomas Hertl. Hertl's a fine player. He's a little bit younger than Kuz, a little bit less of a cap hit in that 5 million range, 5 million territory. So they'll save a bit of money if they go that route, but bring in a young guy. Okay. He's still on his ELC, his entry level contract, making damn near league minimum. That's going to save you a ton of cap space. And then what do you get for Kuznetsov? Prospects. Picks. This team needs draft picks. They trade draft picks like kids trade candy on the playground. My God, this team needs to learn the value of a draft pick. Trading picks left and right. They do not hold the first round pick this year. They do not hold the second round pick this year. And I believe they do not hold either one for next year either. You got to get some picks. You could get a first out of Kuznetsov and probably a second as well if you want to go just straight picks. If you wanted to get picks and a prospect, you could go a first and a prospect who's ready now. You could get a first and a third and a prospect who's still a couple years away. I mean, you could go a lot of ways with this trade, BMAC. Don't just go for the usual suspects. Don't go status quo on us here. Put some effort into it. I realize being an NHL GM is a constant effort. I'm not trying to say what he does every day isn't difficult, but the opportunity to move on from a guy whose consistency these last few years as far as production, quite frankly and very honestly, has been spotty at best. To be very harsh, it has been absolute garbage at times. So here's a chance to move on from that while he still has some value and get some value back and invest in your future. They are going to do everything they can to win the cup in these next 4-ish years while they have Ovechkin and Backstrom. Fine, great. But set for the future a little bit. I mean, are they going to be a playoff team when Ovechkin and Backstrom are gone? Maybe. I'm not banking on it, though. I'd say there's going to be a couple rough years in there. Don't sell it all out now for these older players. We've seen young guys make a huge impact in this league over the last few years. I think McMichael could be that guy. I think Alexiev could be that guy. Varavari could be that guy. They need a full season with Samsonov. He showed flashes in the playoffs. This could be a very good team, a much younger team, a revitalized team with a much better cap situation in a few simple moves. A few simple moves. Now, of course, none of us know that any of this will happen. Certainly, some of it probably will. Maybe not the way I've described to you and the way I'd love to see it pan out, because I'm sure it won't. But this team has a golden opportunity in front of it. You're not rebuilding, but you have a chance to retool, inject some fresh blood into your lineup, and really, really give Ovechkin and Backstrom a chance to win another cup in these next 4 years. If they continue as they are, they will not. I can tell you that now. If they make no significant changes over this offseason, the opportunity is right there. They need to take advantage of it. And I keep talking cap space. Well, what does cap space mean? Yes, you save money. Okay, well, Ted Leonsis has a ton of money. He's not in the business to save money. He's in the business to win. So what do? Well, okay. Say you get all your cap space. You trade Kuznetsov for prospects, picks, or some combination of the two. You lose, let's say, Brendan Dillon in the expansion draft. You're sitting on right there, probably about $11 to $12 million in cap space. Now, you have to figure in re-signings. Of course, without, let's say Ovi takes a little haircut and signs at that 6, that'll free up you about $3.5 more million. So you'll get some re-signings done that they need to do. Nothing really major this offseason. I mean, all the big guys are locked up. Carlson, of course, is on that long deal. Schultz has another year or two left. Backstrom, of course. Oshie, Wilson, Mantha, Eller. All these guys are locked up. So some minor signings to make. I believe Nick Dowd is out of a contract. Spend some money on him. The guy's been good. Give him $2.5 million, $3 million. That's fair. That's very fair. Give him 2-3 years, $2.5 million, $3 million. Okay, so you still got plenty of space. Now, what do you do with it? Well, let's say Alexiev's not ready. Faravari's not ready. It doesn't pan out. Sign somebody. Go out at free agency. If you're not comfortable with both of those guys yet, go sign somebody at free agency. Go trade for somebody. You can, I mean, cap space makes a GM's job so much easier because their job is to make the team as competitive as possible and minimize roster turnover. Roster turnover is inevitable. But in the spirit of keeping this team competitive, getting younger and picking up some cap space will go a long way toward opening this Stanley Cup window again. We've talked about windows as Caps fans for way too many years now. It started in 2015 when McClellan goes, this team has a 2-year window to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, they didn't do it in those 2 years. They did it in the 3rd year. He should have said 3-year window. Because that's basically what it was. These last 3 years have been a struggle. Good enough to make the playoffs, not really good enough to make a run, and not bad enough to get a lot, a pick in the top 15 or a shot at the lottery. So they're kind of in this mushy middle territory, or they're working their way very close to this mushy middle territory. So this is a chance to push out of that and get back kind of into that top 10 teams of the league. Right now, I would say the Caps are certainly top 15, maybe top 10, certainly not top 5. This is an opportunity to really, really reassert themselves and replant themselves right in the thick of it, in those top 5 teams. This is a great, great chance to send Ovechkin and Backstrom out and into retirement with another Stanley Cup or 2 on their resume. Brian McClellan has a golden chance in front of him, and he needs to take advantage of it. The future of this team, as it sits right now, firmly rests on what he does over the summer. Now, it will certainly be an interesting summer. As I said, of course, expansion draft. We have the entry drafts coming. Certainly trades will be made. Free agency acquisitions will likely be signed. Re-signings will probably happen. Plenty to talk about. I will be back with you through the summer. I wanted to take the time to predict, wrap up last season. So, now that all of that is done, let's hope we see some changes this summer. Change is hard. Change is certainly hard. It sucks to see some of your favorite players go. But this is an opportunity for this team to reassert itself in the elite company of the NHL. And they need to take full advantage of it. Because when Ovechkin and Backstrom are gone, it's probably going to be dark days for a while. So take the opportunities now. Build for now. Maybe save a little bit for your future. Make the most of the opportunities. That's what I'd like to see this summer. Brian McClellan making the most of his opportunities to better this team. I'll be back with you throughout the summer to discuss all the happenings, all the splashes, all the disappointment, all the excitement, everything leading up to next season. I will be with you here for. I hope you will join me. Until then, everybody have a great summer. Go Caps.